What's up guys, I'm Roderick, aka Rodman, and welcome back to another video. So with the release of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth coming out in about a week and a half, that made me start to think about what is the hardest boss from each Final Fantasy game. So in this video, I'm going to be telling you guys what I believe is the hardest boss from each Final Fantasy game. If you like retro video games, anime, and gameplay videos, don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe for more content just like this. So let's get right into the video. For the first Final Fantasy game, I'm going with the first super boss of the series, Warmech. The Warmech, otherwise known as the Death Machine, is actually a normal encounter that you find in the Flying Fortress on the bridge leading to Tiamat that has a 0.01% spawn rate, making it a rare enemy. This encounter is easily the hardest fight in the game, so the fans called it the first super boss. The Warmech only has around 2000 health, but since it is highly resistant to every element besides lightning and the absurd damage output with moves such as Nuke, it is quite the force to be reckoned with. I consider Warmech the predecessor to the Omega Mark weapons that are seen later in the series. For Final Fantasy II, I have the Emperor. The Emperor is the final boss of the game, rightfully so. This guy is no joke. He is absolutely relentless. His physical attacks have a drain effect, so whenever he hits you, he will get a lot of health back. Don't forget about his ultimate moves as well. Flare 14 and Starfall 10 will wipe out your entire party if you're unlucky. On top of that, he resists every elemental magic and absorbs all status ailments. For Final Fantasy III, I have the Cloud of Darkness. This is the last Final Fantasy game where the final boss is the hardest boss, but the Cloud of Darkness is a force to be reckoned with. The Cloud of Darkness has two tentacle-like things attached to it, where one only takes damage from physical attacks and the other only takes damage from magic attacks. So for melee-based party like I had, this was really annoying. If you're playing the 2D version, the Cloud of Darkness will use a move that ignores defense and will one-hit kill any party member. And in the 3D remake, it has multiple AoE attacks that do over 2000 damage to the entire party. So pick your poison. So this is where the bosses get significantly more difficult. So for Final Fantasy IV, I have Protobabble. Guys, if I'm being honest, this might be the most unfair boss I've ever fought against in my entire life. And I've beaten every single boss in the entire Souls series. So that's saying a lot. First, you need to beat the game 2 times for this boss to even be fightable. Second, you need to have the augment brace on every party member or you're not going to stand a chance. And you also need the ultimate weapons and the ultimate armor to attack and defend well enough to take this guy down. So good luck with those 0.4% drop rates, because you're going to need it. Now to the moveset. Protobabble is equipped with some ridiculously powerful moves. Starting with Trapdoor's 9th Dimension, a one-hit kill move that is only avoidable if you're wearing adamant armor, another 0.4% drop rate item. Light of Babel is another move it will use. This is a single target attack that will do 9,999 damage regardless of armor or defense. Sometimes Protobabble will also counterattack magic and physical attacks with CPU Laser Barrage and Object 199, which can easily wipe the entire party. That's not even it. When Protobabble's health gets low, it'll start healing itself for 20,000 HP a turn, and it'll start spamming its ultimate move, Divine Judgment, which will do 6,000 damage to the entire party. This is easily the hardest boss from any mainline Final Fantasy game. Next, we have Final Fantasy V. The hardest bosses in the game are definitely from the optional dungeon, the Sealed Temple. My pick for the hardest boss is definitely going to be Neo Shinryu. If you don't know that you're going to be fighting this guy, you are for sure going to get wiped out. Why? Because you actually encounter this boss from a fake chest sneak attack, and Neo Shinryu will attack first, doing 8,000 damage to the whole party. He has 2 phases, one where he is invincible to all damage, and one where he is vulnerable to damage. So for half of the fight, he is immune to all spells and physical attacks. He is immune to every status effect in the game, he absorbs Holy, and uses some of the most broken magic in the entire series, such as Maelstrom, Ice Storm, and Zombie Breath. And by the way, If your whole party gets turned into a zombie, that is an automatic game over. Also, when his health falls below 15,000, he will use Mute, which prevents spell casting for the rest of the battle. Don't forget, when he dies, he will cast Giga Flare, a non-elemental super attack that will do 5,000 or more damage to the entire party. But that's not all, because right after he casts Giga Flare, he will cast Meteor, so at least 1 to 2 of your party members will die, and there's nothing you can do about it. The strongest boss in Final Fantasy VI is definitely Omega Weapon. Omega Weapon appears once you defeat empowered versions of the 8 legendary dragons and their boss, the Kaja Dragon. This guy can use every spell in the game, including some new ones such as Wave Cannon, Heartless Angel, and Grand Delta. First off, when this boss quote-unquote dies, he will revive himself with triple the amount of HP that he initially had. You absolutely need elemental armor to fight this guy, or you will get wiped off of the map. Omega Weapon will also use attacks that take a huge chunk of your party's HP away at once, with moves such as Gravity Bomb and Magnitude. Honestly, the best strategy to take this guy down is to abuse Master Scroll, Genji Gloves, and Quick. This will allow you to attack 8 times per character, so you will absolutely melt this boss even when he is highly resistant to physical attacks. Now for Final Fantasy VII. Most people are going to assume that I'm going to say Emerald Weapon. No. Personally, I always thought that Ruby Weapon was way harder. I think people say Emerald Weapon is harder because they encounter him way too early and the inconveniences of having to equip the underwater materia. That is annoying, but as far as bosses itself, Ruby Weapon is more difficult. The fight against Ruby Weapon will always start as if you were back attacked, which obviously puts you at a major disadvantage. While your active time bar is filling back up when you are back attacked, Ruby Weapon has double physical damage, so you can easily die very quickly. The kicker is that Ruby Weapon is immune to all damage unless its tentacles are exposed. And how do you get the tentacles to come out? Well, you have to either let 2 of your party members get swallowed by his move World Sand, which permanently removes them from the battle, or let 2 of your party members die. On top of that, the tentacles inflict gravity-based attacks and status effects to the whole party, which makes this boss fight all the more difficult. Essentially, you have to fight this boss with one character, which is ridiculous. Oh yeah, and don't forget he counters Knights of the Round and all physical attacks with Ultima, so good luck. The hardest boss in Final Fantasy VIII is Omega Weapon. You fight this guy in Ultimeca's castle. This guy is really hard, but remember in Final Fantasy VIII, if you have max speed, your limit breaks will take priority over the enemy's attacks. So by using people who have multi-hit limit breaks such as Squall, Zell, and Irvine, you should be able to melt this guy. But let's talk about his moveset. Omega Weapon has over 1 million HP, absorbs all elements, and has stupidly powerful magic. Omega Weapon will constantly use level 5 death on your whole party. So if your level is a multiple of 5, then you're cooked, unless you junction 100 deaths to your defense. Omega Weapon, like many other super bosses, will use a lot of gravity-based attacks, specifically Gravajaw, which takes 75% HP from the whole party. The 2 attacks that you should be watching out for is Light Pillar and Megiddo Flame. Light Pillar is an attack that will instantly kill one party member regardless of defense, and Megiddo Flame is an attack that does 9,998 damage to the whole party, so be careful. Overall, Omega Weapon is a very difficult boss, but the Final Fantasy VIII combat system is very easy to exploit. The hardest boss in Final Fantasy IX is Ozma. Ozma is contender for the hardest boss in the entire series, and honestly, if Proto Babel didn't exist, then I believe that the title will go to Ozma. The deceiving thing about Ozma is that he only has around 55,000 health, but his attacks are so ridiculously powerful that it comes down to pure RNG if you are going to be able to beat this guy. His main move is Meteor, and we all know how broken Meteor is in Final Fantasy IX. If you don't know, Meteor has a random chance of instantly killing a party member, if not all. The most annoying move that Ozma will use is Curse. It does a lot of damage to you and inflicts every status effect in the game on your party, which as it sounds, is very difficult to deal with, so you better have some ribbons equipped. Also, don't forget in Final Fantasy IX, there is no multi-hit attacks. Each character can do a maximum of 9,999 damage a turn, which makes this boss fight even longer and more difficult. And honestly, there is something about the way that Ozma looks that creeps me out. What is this thing? It's like this weird rotating planet. I don't know. The hardest boss fight in Final Fantasy X is easily Pinus. And I don't want to hear, oh bro, you can use Yojimbo and Zamato to one-shot him. That's cheap, and if you resorted to using that, you didn't really beat the boss. I'll say this, Pinus is more of an endurance battle instead of a super difficult high damage boss. He has one of the highest health pools out of any boss in the entire Final Fantasy series, so you need to be prepared. To effectively fight this guy, you need to have Wakka fully maxed out and his celestial weapon fully upgraded as well. So you know what that means, Blitzball, which is a beast of its own. The reason you need Wakka is because his limit break has the highest damage output in the entire game, so you're going to need him to take out Pinus' arms. And don't forget Pinus' ultimate move, Judgment Day, which does 99,000 damage and multiple hits of 99,000 damage to the entire party. Overall, Pinus is an absolute monster that will usually take you several hours to beat due to his egregiously high health pool. Speaking of bosses with high health pools, let's actually talk about Final Fantasy XI. I wanted to shed more light on what I could believe could be the hardest boss fight in all of gaming, Absolute Virtue. I'm not exaggerating, this boss takes over 30 hours of non-stop fighting. Actually, Square Enix quickly realized that they made a huge mistake in releasing this boss, so they heavily nerfed it. Only one group of players were successful in defeating this boss before the nerfs. As for the boss itself, I find this aspect very crazy. Absolute Virtue has around 66,000 HP, and when you're about to kill him, he uses his ultimate ability, Benediction, which recovers 47,000 HP. Imagine fighting a boss for 30 straight hours just for him to heal all of his health back. Honestly, I'd probably punch a hole through my monitor. The hardest boss in Final Fantasy XII is Yzmat. He is the ultimate elite mark and the ultimate boss. This boss has over 50 million HP and can take multiple hours to take down. Similar to Pinus, this boss doesn't necessarily do a crap ton of damage, but it is more of a test of endurance. He is highly resistant to every element in the game except for darkness. He can cast absurdly powerful buffs on himself, and similar to Absolute Virtue, Yzmat can do a weird strategy where he casts Reflect on the party and then casts Renew on the party, which will fully heal him. Imagine doing 45 million damage to him and he fully heals. The thing that is a great advantage is that you don't have to fight this guy in one run. You can leave and come back and he will have a similar amount of HP as you left him. The hardest boss in the Final Fantasy XIII trilogy is easily going to be Long Gui. Long Gui is definitely within the top 5 hardest bosses in the entire Final Fantasy series. This boss is immune to all elements and only takes 10% of your physical damage. So if Long Gui has over 16 million HP, how are you going to defeat it? Well, the only viable strategy to defeating this guy is by using the death spell, which means that the fate of your fight is purely up to RNG. There are people who beat this boss in one try, but there are also plenty of people who never beat this boss. I'm going to skip the hardest boss fight in Final Fantasy XIV because it's always changing, but right now I think it's the Omega Ultimate. I'm not too sure because I'm still on Shadowbringers. But next on the list is Final Fantasy XV, and the hardest boss fight in that game is the Adamantoise. The huge mountain that you see in Lead is actually a huge Adamantoise that you have to fight. This boss is level 99, has almost 6 million HP, and has 190,000 strength. This is an absolute endurance battle. Usually this boss fight takes around 1 to 2 hours to beat, and remember, that's with all your characters doing max damage per hit. The Adamantoise is pretty slow, so his moveset is predictable, but remember, he is immune to every status effect and resistant to all elements. Honestly, the most difficult thing about this boss fight might be the camera. I swear, it's fighting against you during this whole game. Assuming you're not using the Ring of Lucy, this guy is definitely a force to be reckoned with. Last but not least, we have Final Fantasy XVI. Not sure why this game got so much hate, but this game has some of the best boss fights in the entire series, and the hardest one out of the bunch is going to Savrog. Savrog is one of the final hunts in the base game of Final Fantasy XVI, and he most definitely lives up to the title. Since this is an S rank level hunt, that means that Savrog will be around 5 to 10 levels above your party. The main 3 moves to watch out for are Blazing Legion, where he summons a bunch of fireballs followed by a giant laser, Red Dawn, 2 pillars of fire that lock in on you and follow you around the map, and Embroil, a bunch of meteors where on impact have a ring of fire explode from it. All 3 of these moves are very dangerous and are combined with each other and other melee moves, so you need to be very cautious or you will be sent to the game over screen. The DLC boss Omega was pretty hard, but at that point, you have all of the ultimate gear and icons, so it wasn't too crazy. That's going to wrap it up for this video. If you like this video, don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe for more videos just like this. Ramen out. Peace.